I'm Tim Robertson, and you have found the YouTube channel for the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. Congratulations. This channel is set up to promote the ALPO and also offer training videos to the amateur astronomer on various observing techniques, observing programs, and astronomical events. We're also looking for content creators too. If you are interested in putting together a small instructional video for the amateur astronomer, please drop us a note. This first video is an introduction to the organization and means to show anyone who owns a telescope the type of observing program we have available and that you can do actual science with your telescope. Welcome to the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. This presentation is entitled The Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers, Past, Present, and Future. And of course, I'm Tim Robertson. I run the training program in the ALPO, and also I'm the coordinator of the Observer's Notebook podcast. What is the ALPO? Well, it's an international group of individuals that study the sun, the moon, the planets, asteroids, meteors, comets, and other topics that is related to our solar system. The goals of the ALPO are to stimulate and coordinate and generally promote the study of these bodies by using instruments and methods that are available within the communities of both professional and amateur astronomers. A little bit about myself. I've been a member of the ALPO since the 70s. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley, which was a very light polluted area, especially back at that time. And all I could see were the planets and the moon. So I gravitated, no pun intended, to the ALPO. And the thing I like about the organization too is you don't need to travel to a dark site to submit observations or to make serious observations for these things. You can do it from your front yard or your backyard, wherever you like. Anyway, I digress. Here's some of the services that the ALPO has. For the novice observers, it's a place to learn and enhance your observational techniques. For the advanced amateur, it's a place where one's work could count through the participation in various observing programs. And for the professional astronomer, it's a resource where the group studies systematic observations and patrols of various objects. There's a lot of pro-am collaboration within the ALPO. It all began way back in March 1947 in the United States by Walter Haas, a gentleman here. It was later incorporated in 1990. The ALPO is an organization for advancing and conducting astronomical work by professional and amateur astronomers who share an interest in the solar system, and it's currently headquartered in Springfield, Illinois. It all began, well, first we had no structure. The members observed whatever they wanted, and they published them basically in little leaflets that Walter Haas had put out monthly or bi-monthly. Later, the ALPO adopted a structure similar to the British Astronomical Association, which broke the observing areas or the areas of interest into sections, such as the Saturn section. And each section had a person in charge that we called the recorder. Now that term is coordinator. The ALPO has a kaleidoscope of different programs related to the solar system astronomy, managed by up to 17 different sections. We have two basic types of programs and sections. One is observational, and the other is non-observational or special interest programs and sections. From the observational sections, we have the solar, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn sections. Other observational sections are the moon, lunar. A couple sections within that are topographic studies, lunar transient phenomenon, lunar meteoric impact search, and lunar dome survey. And I'll get into detail with these a little bit later. Also important observational sections, we have minor planets. Remote planets, that's Uranus and Neptune, minor planets, comets, meteors, eclipses, and then Mercury and Venus transits. The role of the section coordinator is to collect and study the submitted observations and then correspond with those observers that send in the observations. Also encourage beginners, and then every operation, they contribute a report to the journal at appropriate intervals. So all the observations that come in, they just don't sit on the coordinator's desk. They put them into a paper, and then that paper gets published, and all of the observers that did submit observations are credited in the journal as well. Just a little bit more into the sections. The solar section is one of our most active sections right now in the ALPO. Daily solar photos and observations are posted on the internet every day. And the section coordinator for the sun is Rick Hill, and you can see his email address right there. The Mercury section. Mercury is often overlooked because it's a small planet, but it's dynamic when you can see it and have the equipment to actually distinguish features on the planet. Dedicated observers are the ones that really become proficient in observing Mercury. And the section coordinator is Frank Melio. Contact information below. The Venus section. Venus, a bright planet, easy to see with the naked eye, stands out, but somewhat difficult at times to see detail on the surface or in the clouds of Venus. And with the proper filters and equipment, you can actually see fine detail within the clouds, like this photograph by Rick Hill using a UV Venus filter. You can see the black and white one on the bottom there. It shows some detail in the clouds. And the coordinator for the Venus section is Julia Benton, the current executive director of the ALPO. The Mars section, one of the most popular over the years. The highest number of observations are usually submitted to this section on years of opposition. And the coordinator of the Mars section is Roger Venable. The Jupiter section. The Jupiter section also is a very popular section for both visual and photographic members or imagers. Most members in the ALPO do at one time or another contribute to the Jupiter section because it's such an easy object to see and photograph and draw. Also, a side section of the Jupiter section is one that focuses on transit timings of Jovan features, which is basically when features cross the central plane or central meridian of the planet, timing those for a better understanding of how the cloud patterns of Jupiter work. And the Saturn section. It's a beautiful planet. People love looking at it. People even love more photographing it and making observations of it. And it's interesting because the various tilt of the rings that happens throughout its orbit. We have observing forms that actually compensate for those when you go to the ALPO website. Section coordinator is also Julius Benton, who also coordinates the Venus section. Remote planets. It's a section for Uranus and Neptune. Visual, photographic, and photometric observations are the types of observations that most of these objects see. Here's a few drawings that you see of Uranus back in 2007. And Richard Shamuti is our section coordinator for the remote planets. Minor planets. Photometric light curves are the result of observations of minor planet section. If you do some type of photometry, or if you're interested in photometry, this is a good way to get started, get your feet wet. Fred Pilcher, the coordinator, is very helpful in instructing people on how to do light curves and getting the proper equipment to do that. So minor planet section, you can actually, with the light curves, you can actually tell the rotation of the minor planets. The comet section. Anytime there's a comet in the sky, Carl Hergenrother is the guy to call. He's our coordinator for the comet section, and they accept all types of observations from visual drawings, photos, or just even written descriptions of a comet you observe. The comet section. The meteor section. I have to tell you, this is the most fun for me because observing meteor showers is a relaxing experience. You find out when a meteor shower is taking place, you grab your lawn chair, cup of hot cocoa, and a blanket, and a pad of paper, and a little watch, and you go out there and you count meteors during a meteor shower. It's a lot of fun to do, and it's very relaxing. Bob Lunsford is our coordinator for the meteor section. Touching on the moon now, the lunar section, the topographical studies and selected areas program. The selected areas program has identified interesting features on the moon that they want to make systematic observations and report any variations within the journal of the ALPO. Those observations are both visual, which by visual I mean drawings, and photographic observations. Wayne Bailey is the coordinator of the topographical studies and selected areas program within the ALPO. Lunar Meteorite Impact Search. During a recent total lunar eclipse, a meteor strike was observed on the moon by numerous observers all over the globe. And so that has heightened the interest in this section as well. And it's pretty interesting to do. Basically, you put a video camera on the moon on the dark side. And during a lunar eclipse or something, or during meteor showers is a good time to do this too, because we're in a path of meteors. But Brian Kudnick is the coordinator of the Lunar Meteorite Impact Search Program. Lunar Domes. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of lunar domes, but they're these interesting features on the moon, highlighted there in that photograph. And what the ALPO is currently doing, interesting things, there's no catalog for the types of lunar domes on the moon and the number of lunar domes. So the goal of the Lunar Dome Survey is to do just that. Catalog the types of lunar domes that are observed and a map of where they're all located. They've been largely ignored through lunar maps and things like that. So both visual and photographic observations are needed. And Rafael Olena is our coordinator for that section. Eclipse section. For lunar eclipses, all observations are welcome. Photographs, Dajon scale measurements, visual observations. Keith Spring is our lead on that. He's the section coordinator. Solar eclipses. Obviously, if you're interested in solar eclipses, we also are interested in solar eclipses. And send your observations again to Keith Spring. He is our eclipse guy. So there's his contact information. Meteorite section. This is the only non-observational program in the ALPO. Purpose of the meteorite section is to educate the interested amateur astronomer and provide information about meteorites, dispel misconceptions, and direct those with possible meteorites to knowledgeable resources, helping you identify meteorites. And the section coordinator in that area is Dolores Hill. We have a youth section. It's relatively new. The coordinator is Pamela Shavek, and the goal of the youth section is to encourage children and young adults to take an interest in astronomy, space, and outreach. And we plan to achieve this goal by forming an alliance with astronomy clubs and other STEM and educational entities. Like most organizations, we are getting older, and we're trying to find a way to bring the younger folks into our organization. And by establishing this youth section, that's one way of doing it. Now, a program that's near and dear to my heart, the ALPO Training Program. I am the coordinator of this program. And the goal of the training program, it's open to all members, expert and beginner. And the goal is to make you a more proficient observer. You've all gone out to telescopes at night, attended star parties, and set up a telescope and looking at an object. And let's say you're at a public star party and you have a galaxy in your telescope and you look in the eyepiece and you see it. Then a line of people come up behind you and nobody sees it because it's a faint fuzzy. Well, you have trained your eye to see those things. Well, that's the goal within the ALPO, is to further train your observational capabilities to see detail in these features on the planets and the moon. And it all revolves around submitting observational observations to the ALPO in a systematic and organized way. The course of instruction of the ALPO, it's two-tiered. The first tier is known as the basic level. We have a handbook that you will get. It's free once you join the ALPO, and it has you master the fundamentals of observing, basically learning how to calculate universal time, understanding what seeing and transparency are and things like that. And then you start making drawings. There's nothing to do with imaging in the training program. It is all observational astronomy using pencils and a pad of paper to make observations of the objects. I went through the program back in the 70s. I observed one crater on the moon for, I believe, 240 times. I made 240 separate observations. And the difference in my observations from the first one to the last one was remarkable. Not only did my ability to draw get better, but also my ability to observe, seeing detail in the exact same crater over that 18-month period of time is what it took me. So it trains you, and the student, once a student has successfully demonstrated skills, he or she will advance to the novice level for further training with one of the section recorders or coordinators. For the training program, there's no time limit to complete the training program. Most students finish within a year. The shortest I've had somebody go through it is 6 months. The longest I've had someone in the program for 2 years currently, and they're moving right along. But it's all based upon your speed, your willingness to put time in the eyepiece and make observations. It's a free program. Doesn't cost you anything. Like I said, the handbook is free. There's a few minor things you'll have to purchase, drawing pencils and things like that, but it's a minimum amount to pay. There's no minimum requirement for the telescope to use. I used a 60mm refractor when I went through the program. And when the student has mastered the final phase of the program, you get a nice certificate that certifies you as an observer in the ALPO for that particular field. So what are we doing right now in the ALPO? Well, with the advances of astrophotography and imaging, we have members that are on the cutting edge of astrophotography and imaging. Also, we have sections within the ALPO that are not observational, such as computing, which has observing aids, programs to calculate ephemeris and data reduction. Online, we have a website. I mentioned the podcast earlier. We have a Facebook presence, and we also, like I said, have the Meteorite Section. Everything we do is published in our journal, the Journal of the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. It's also known as the Strolling Astronomer. That was the name when it was first went out. It's a quarterly publication, and within it we have apparition reports of the planets, information on events, close passages, or ongoing studies, and information and recognition of accomplishments by our members. But it's a quarterly publication. It's in color. It's very nice. It's also available online. It also features observing techniques, advice for using different types of instrumentation, commentary, and preview of upcoming events. It has news notes, what's happening in different sections, and other happenings in lunar and planetary astronomer. Like I said, a digital format is available, and also the journal has a members discussion group. Like the ALPO, like all organizations, everyone involved with amateur astronomy knows it's a graying endeavor. Everybody has my hair color in astronomy. So in an effort to bring the ALPO to a new generation, we're grabbing onto technology such as this YouTube channel and taking the ALPO to its next level. For the ALPO, the future is now. We recognize this is a need we need to address. We've reviewed the current way information is disseminated. Print media is becoming a thing of the past. Online is where most people get their information. We want to reach a younger audience, like our youth program is doing. It allows for immediate release of new discoveries and observations. If we were just a publication, you would find about new discoveries long after they had maximized. So it's not a good thing. So online is a way we're doing it through this medium, YouTube, and also through the podcast. We want to grow the membership of the ALPO and reach a worldwide audience. And we want to introduce how to observe to everyone. And that is also a goal of this YouTube channel, to put how-to videos together for every amateur astronomer. The Observer's Notebook podcast, which I am the host of. Our first episode dropped January 20th, 2017. Matt Will, who's the Secretary Treasurer of the ALPO, and I did a short interview about the history of the ALPO. You can go ahead and download it. It's available on all formats. That first download, we had 25. The first month, we had 25 downloads. Today, we have 97 episodes online. This is being recorded in mid-2020, and we average about 85 downloads a day. New episodes are released on the 1st and 15th of every month. If you're not familiar with a podcast is basically a radio show that gets sent directly to your device, your smartphone or your computer. We have listeners from all over the globe. Outside of the US, we have listeners in the United Kingdom, Canada, Costa Rica, Italy, Germany, all over the place. It changes every month who's listening. And the podcast is available on all formats: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and that crazy little tube that sits in your living room and listens to everything you say, Amazon Echo. But if you don't have a smartphone and want to listen, you can go to your computer at soundcloud.com/observers notebook and listen to all episodes there. So you say you love the podcast, huh? And you don't want to miss it. Well, you can actually subscribe to it on your smartphone. You'll see a logo like this. Just click on that app, and there's a search button. Type in Observer's Notebook, and you'll see our logo like this right here. And then hit the subscribe button. Boom. And all episodes, when they're uploaded to the web, they'll be automatically downloaded to your phone, and you can listen to them anytime you want. It's a good way when you're commuting to keep posted to what's going on in the world of astronomy and the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers. What are we discussing on the podcast? Well, these are some of the past ones we've had. The history of amateur astronomy in the U.S. This is actually the longest podcast we have to date. It's about a 90-minute episode. Most of them are 20 to 30 minutes in length, so not too long. We have section biographies of each section within the ALPO. So if you're interested in the Mars section, you can find the one we just introduced the Mars section and talk to the coordinator there, and you find all sorts of information in order to contribute to the section. During the 2017 total solar eclipse, we had a number of podcasts and do that. We interviewed astro imager Damian Peach. Got a nice conversation with Don Mackholtz about how he goes about discovering comets. A good discussion on the training program. We're actually interviewed a past student of the program. Podcast on basics of planetary imaging. And every year we have comets for that year that come out with Carl Hergenrother. Our 100th episode is a very special episode with an interview with David Levy. So that's one to check out if you're interested. And the podcast is self-sufficient. Depends upon donations from our listeners. The cost for recording, producing, advertising, and having it online is not cheap. I use a service called Patreon. And we have 4 levels of donations for Patreon: $1 donation a month, $5 donation a month, $10 donation a month, and $35 donation per month. And for the $35, you receive 1 year's membership to the AL, and you're actually announced as a producer on the podcast. So if you're interested in supporting the podcast, listen to it first. And if you like it, hey, think about contributing to it. The website there is patreon.com/observers notebook. Other outlets we have is conventions. The ALPO has annual conventions, usually with another organization or two, where we have paper sessions, exhibits, and you can meet and greet and shake hands with all of the members of the ALPO. Membership. How much is all this, Tim? Well, 1 year's membership, if you just want the digital version of the journal, is only $18 a year. That's right, I didn't stutter. It's only $18 a year. If you want the paper journal, it's $39 a year. 2 years membership for the digital journal is $24. That's quite a discount. Paper journal is $72. Memberships can be paid for by check or online. Just remember, the ALPO provides a platform for amateur astronomers that wish to be informed, learn, and contribute to the advancement of lunar and planetary astronomer. Whether you want to participate in our observing programs or merely subscribe to our literature, please join us in the great astronomical adventure. Thank you. For contact me information, my email address is cometman@cometman.net. And for the ALPO, you can find us on Facebook. Just search for ALPO Astronomy. And also on the web, the website for the ALPO is alpo-astronomy.org. Hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. There's plenty more to come.